All right, on number 2, part A, the question says determine the solutions to the quadratic function x squared minus 10x plus 34 equals 0. So one thing that you should be thinking about is whenever a question says determine the solutions to the quadratic function, we should be thinking that one way we can determine the solutions to the quadratic function is using the quadratic formula, which is on page number 19 of your Unit 4 packet. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So in order to use the quadratic formula, there's two things that we have to make sure of. The first is we have to make sure that our quadratic function is set equal to 0. So because when we're using the quadratic formula, we're finding the zeros of the function. So step 1 is your equation set equal to 0? I hope you're saying yes right now because it is. So we can check that off. So then the next step is to identify your A value, your B value, and your C value in order to plug it into the quadratic formula. So to find the A value, B value, and C value, we have to know that the standard form of a quadratic function from highest degree to lowest is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So the A value is always the coefficient of the x squared term. So in this case, if we look up at our quadratic function, we see nothing in front of x squared, so we know that that coefficient has to be 1 because it wouldn't be there if the coefficient was 0. So A equals 1. For our B value, you're looking at the x term, so it's the coefficient of the x term and the sign as well. So if you look at our quadratic function, our b value is negative 10. And our c value is the number that's left alone with no x value. So our c value here is 34. Once you identify the a, b, and c value, what we're going to do is we're going to plug it into the quadratic formula. So I'm going to rewrite the quadratic formula, but we're going to plug in our b values wherever it says b, our a values, and our c values. So x equals negative b, so that means the opposite side of b. So if our b is negative 10, I'm going to write positive 10. Plus or minus the square root. So when I fill in under the square root symbol, I like to put parentheses where my b goes. So b squared minus 4 times a times c. So my b goes here, so my b is negative 10. My a value is 1, and my c value is 34. And I know all over 2 times our a value, which is 1. Now, one thing you want to remember here, if you don't put the divisor symbol all the way under 10, you might mix up and divide them separately. So you want to make sure you extend that because it's 10 plus or minus the square root of all of this over 2a. So now we simplify. So the first thing I do is I like to simplify under the radical. So negative 10 squared is 100. I should have wrote this out. And then negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And then negative 4 times 34 is negative 136. All over 2 times 1 is 2. So then that makes it a lot easier because now I just have to do 100 minus 100 minus 136. So 100 minus 136 is negative 36. So I'm just going to rewrite this again. All right. So now we have to figure out how we can simplify the square root of negative 36. If you're not sure how to do this, I would like you to get a calculator right now and plug in the square root of negative 36 to see what the calculator gives you as an answer. I really mean it. Go do it. So if you did that, you're going to get something on the calculator that says error, and it says non-real ants. That should be your thinking in your head. Okay, I know that I has to be my answer because there's no real answer to the square root of negative 36. So what you do then is we know it's 10 plus or minus. What's the square root of 36? 6. So we know it has to be I divided by 2. This is where I like to write it out as 2 answers. So from here, I know that I have the plus or minus. So either x could be 10 plus 6i over 2, or x can equal 10 minus 6i over 2. Once I get to this point, my last step is just to think about, can I divide each of those terms by 2? So 10 divided by 2, I know I can simplify that. 6 divided by 2, I can simplify that. So I can simplify the whole answer by doing 10 divided by 2 is 5. 6i divided by 2 is positive 3i. And then down here, 10 divided by 2 is 5. Negative 6i divided by 2 is negative 3i. So the solutions to this quadratic function are x equals 5 plus 3i and x equals 5 minus 3i.